Good evening, it's Saturday the 11th of October. You're tuned in to our 6 p.m. newscast coming to you from ARIRANG's news centre in Seoul. It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this evening, hope is dimming that the two Koreas will be able to sit down for planned high-level talks in the coming weeks after Friday's exchange of machine gun fire at the inter-Korean border. North Korea is furious with Seoul for not doing more to stop activists flying balloons across the border. The balloons carry leaflets denouncing North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Planned inter-Korean talks seem to be hanging by a thread after the two Koreas exchanged machine gun fire at the inter-Korean border on Friday. In an article titled "We Will Never Tolerate This," posted on its state-controlled website 우리 민족끼리, the North blamed South Korean activists for flying balloons carrying anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border, saying it was disrespectful to the North Korean regime. It also pointed the finger at Seoul for not trying hard enough to prevent such rogue actions from happening, adding it was orchestrated by Washington to thwart progress in inter-Korean ties. It says Seoul needs to better handle matters related to the North in the future, but the website left out the fact that the two Koreas exchanged fire. The planned inter-Korean talks are due to be held sometime in late October or early November and were first brought up when a high-level North Korean delegation made a surprise visit to the South last weekend. Meanwhile, responding to recent speculation, the White House says there's no evidence that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been overthrown. Rumors have been spreading as the young leader has not been seen in public for more than a month. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
South Korea is calling for a more comprehensive and creative approach to denuclearizing North Korea. Speaking in Seoul on Saturday, South Korea's special representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, Hwang Jung-guk, said pessimism about the chance of success was hindering any progress when it comes to persuading the North to give up its nuclear arms. Hwang also said that North Korea's nuclear activities only serve to further isolate the country and takes the North Korean people hostage. He adds Seoul is working with its partners in the six-party talks to come up with ways to get Pyongyang to denuclearize while maintaining UN Security Council sanctions on the regime. South Korea and Japan have agreed to hold a finance ministers' meeting in Tokyo soon, restarting talks that have been stalled for nearly 2 years amid the two countries' frosty relations. Korean Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan and his Japanese counterpart Taro Aso reached the agreement on Friday on the sidelines of a series of international meetings they've been attending in the United States. Seoul's finance ministry says Choi and Aso also exchanged views on a broad range of issues, including the trends of the world and the two economies, ways to increase regional financial cooperation and APEC issues. The meeting marked the first time the finance ministers of Seoul and Tokyo have held talks one-on-one since November 2012. Relations have been strained over a variety of historical and territorial issues. Korea is playing down the chance for a one-on-one meeting between President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. A Korean official speaking to reporters in Washington said the condition for holding such a meeting, namely Tokyo showing a sincere and apologetic attitude on the issue of its military sexual enslavement of Korean women in the early 20th century, has not been met. There had been speculation the two leaders would meet on the sidelines of next month's APEC summit in Beijing. President Park and Prime Minister Abe haven't held any bilateral meetings since they came to power early last year. More than 4,000 people have now died in the Ebola outbreak, according to new figures, as international warnings get even louder. In a sign of how seriously the United States is taking this issue, New York's JFK Kennedy Airport is now starting to screen passengers for Ebola. Passengers from affected countries in West Africa will have their temperatures taken and will be asked to answer questionnaires as they enter the country. The Centers for Disease Control Control and Prevention says the screening is just one part of an overall strategy to fight the spread of Ebola. Officials say it'll be rolled out to 4 other airports next week. Meanwhile, a national exercise to test Britain's readiness for an Ebola outbreak will take place on Saturday. The 8-hour operation was ordered by British Prime Minister David Cameron. Samsung Electronics has been having quite a tough time of late. One of the company's biggest problems is that it's being squeezed in the highly competitive smartphone market by Apple and new up-and-coming Chinese manufacturers. The Korean tech giant has a plan, though, as our Park Ji-yeon reports.
The world's largest smartphone maker, Samsung, is in crisis. Its third-quarter operating profit is expected to record another earnings shock, and analysts say weak sales of its new smartphone models against fierce new competition is the main reason for the fall.
Samsung has somewhat lost its price competitiveness as local Chinese smartphone companies are making great advances.
Samsung has been a long-running leader in the global smartphone industry, fueled by sales of its premium models that retail for nearly $8,000. But those expensive handsets are not selling like they used to. New, cheaper mobile phones that run comparable to Samsung's devices are outselling the giant. To combat this, Samsung has set a new sales strategy. Focus on low-end models and regain price competitiveness by innovating design and using new materials. Samsung also plans on diversifying its profit structure, moving away from its smartphone dependency and investing more into its other main business, semiconductors. The firm is looking to solidify its status as the world's #2 chip vendor by building what will be the world's largest state-of-the-art fabrication plant in Pyeongtaek, an investment of $14.5 billion that could begin to pay off in late 2017 when construction is completed. Samsung is at a crossroads, and it remains to be seen whether these moves will lead to its resurgence as the global leader. Park Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Now, new security features will be rolled out on Korea's most popular messaging application, KakaoTalk, in a bid to allay users' concerns about security. Daum Kakao says it has already slashed the storage time for KakaoTalk chat history data to 2 to 3 days. By the end of the year, the company also says it will add end-to-end encryption, which will give users enhanced levels of privacy and bolster the security of their information. KakaoTalk will also offer a new privacy mode for off-the-record chatting. Turning on this mode will also delete all read messages from the server. Watchers say the moves are part of the company's efforts to end ongoing claims that chat histories on KakaoTalk can be monitored by the government. After more than 1 decade of unfettered development, the Chinese property market is approaching a point of maturity, forcing investors to look elsewhere for new opportunities. They are targeting overseas properties to counteract slower economic and price growth at home. Our Son Jong-un reports.
Insurance company Lloyd's sold its headquarters in London to China's Ping An Insurance in July last year for $388 million. More recently, the landmark Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York was purchased by Chinese insurance company Anbang for nearly $2 billion. Over the first 6 months of the year, outbound real estate investments from Chinese developers and insurance firms amounted to some $42.4 billion.
Real estate investments by Chinese companies overseas jumped over 50% during the first half of this year compared to last year.
After decades of vigorous growth, China is pursuing opportunities abroad over signs that the domestic real estate bubble has begun to burst. Construction land transactions were slashed nearly in half last month in major cities including Beijing and Shanghai.
As China's property bubble is expected to continue to deflate over the next 10 years, the outlook is gloomy for real estate investors.
Many of China's wealthiest people and firms are also reaching out to Korea, to places like Busan, Seoul, and Jeju Island, spurred by the Chinese government's drive against corruption. 손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now, finally, leaving you with the weather for the rest of the weekend. It's going to be a fairly chilly night with the overnight low dipping to 12 degrees Celsius in Seoul. Sunday will be similar to what we enjoyed today, namely a beautiful day with mostly sunny skies in most parts of the nation. However, Korea's southern and eastern coasts are forecast to be hit by strong winds and rain through next Tuesday as Typhoon Vonfong moves northward towards Japan, so keep a close eye on reports if you are in those areas. Let's take a look at the weather conditions in your part of the world. Well, that's all we have for now. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday wherever you're watching us, and do stay tuned to ARIRANG TV. We'll be back again for our next newscast at 10 p.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.